do I have a lot to show you. I am very excited. If you're new, welcome. I'm BB. If you're not new, welcome back. I talk about tarot, sometimes life, philosophy, art, culture, beauty, style, whatever strikes my fancy, really. I'm doing a VR today to Second Thoughts About the Mission picture book decks. Let's start with a couple picture books that I have left from childhood. I used to have a lot more, but you know how it goes. They get lost in the shuffle. The first book I have is The Whale's Song by Dylan Sheldon and paintings by Gary Blythe. My mom got this for me. She fell in love with the story. It's a really simple story, and she fell in love with the images. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you everything. Love, Mommy. 2/16/92. Look at how beautiful these paintings are. The faces are so emotive. It's about this little girl who hears the whale's song, and she lives with her grandmother and her great uncle. And her grandmother believes in her and believes that she hears the whale's song, and her great uncle is a naysayer. This is her uncle here. It looks like this is acrylic on canvas. She goes out to the pier and he tells her she's being silly and he tells her to go back home. But in the middle of the night, she hears the whales. So cute. And they were calling her name. It's like so adorable. I don't know. Okay, so that's the first book that I still have that made it through all the moves and life stuff. I knocked over my lamp, but I guess I'll deal with that later. The second one is Eric Kincaid's Mother Goose Classic Nursery Rhymes. This is probably the reason I know nursery rhymes, apart from the really popular ones that maybe were recited in school. This is the end paper. Is that not so gorgeous? Look at that, like chateau or castle. It's probably a castle. So it has a ton of nursery rhymes, like a ton. And I always loved the illustrations. And some of these are so iconic and formative to me that if you recite one of these nursery rhymes, I'm probably thinking of these images, you know? So good. So beautiful. This it looks scary, but it's 3 blind mice. I feel like back in the day there was like a lot more, you know, violence and things like that in nursery rhymes. With a cold, it's a hard world out there. Not when I was growing up, but when these nursery rhymes were written. Oh, I loved this one. It's like a seaside outfit. This one's kind of haunting, no? And then these were the images for the 12 Days of Christmas. And I always thought about these whenever we'd sing the song. I loved all of the books that Rachel shared with us. It made me want to actually go buy some. I think I've always really loved picture book type illustrations, and I've talked about it on my channel. Like I really love, sorry, there are sirens. I really love, oh my gosh, look at the cat in the wig. No. So cute. Let me know if you recognize any of these. I know I'm just like going through them kind of quickly, but I really love storybook illustrations. And like I said, I've talked about it on my channel before. I never shut up about it. And it's true. And I feel like I should probably have more of these books because especially the ones from the 60s that Rachel was sharing. Oh my gosh, my grandma and my mom used to recite this to me and say that this was me. There once was a girl and she had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead. And when she was good, she was very, very good. But when she was bad, she was horrid. That's you. Because I used to throw like really big fits when I was little. Anyway, you can find this and you can also find the whale song. Oh, I loved this image. You can find both of these books on thrift books or Abe books. They're pretty easy to find. They're really affordable. I highly recommend it because they're just really enchanting and they just take you to another world. I loved this one too. If all the world were paper and all the sea were ink, if all the trees were bread and cheese, what should we have to drink? So good. Anyway, mine's completely falling apart. I really need to get a new one. Ouch, that's really sad. But, you know, this one has, like, my name in it. I guess I could write my name in the new one, too. Or just keep that old one and, like, never open it. Okay, let's get into the decks. I separated them into 4 categories, I guess just to make things make some sort of sense. And the first category I call the toddler category. And it may mean that the art reminds me of that age range and books in that age range. I think all of them do, but only some of them context-wise remind me of toddlers. Not all are safe for toddlers. So please don't use this as a guide. The first one is a perfect example. It's the Tarot del Fuego by Ricardo Cavolo, and this is a Fournier deck. I also didn't choose every deck in my collection that could be construed as picture books. I just kind of, I don't know, went on instinct and pulled the ones that were kind of speaking to me, you know? But the colors and the lines of this just remind me of nothing in particular, not that I know of like any toddler's books, but maybe because it just has this saturation that kind of is almost a goodnight moon. It also a little bit reminds me of Adventure Time, and I know that's more of like a kid-aged show, but there's something about the freedom of this color story and of the quality and style of artwork. It's just really, I don't know, it just has this like vibrancy that I feel like a toddler has, you know? Again, not a deck that's suitable for toddlers, but still in my toddler section. You get it, I don't need to explain. So that is the Tarot del Fuego. The next deck is kind of the same. This is also in my like punk rock deck selections. It is the Gentle Thrills Tarot by Isa Beniston. I think this one even goes a step further than the Tarot del Fuego because this art doesn't have any outline. So it's not gonna have, I don't know, there's just like no pretense. It's not like high art, it's not fine art. It's very cool and very relevant and stylized, which you know I love. It has this feeling of drawing outside the lines, and the fact that the people in this deck are blue and gray. What else are they? Are they all blue and gray? Oh, and green. You know, it's kind of like using your whole imagination and not being constrained to I don't know, reality, which I think is really fun. And it reminds me of like toddler toys, the colors of toddler toys, you know, but it's very picture book to me. That's the Gentle Thrills Tarot. The Cat's Eye Tarot. I have a couple of cat decks in here. This is the only one that made it into the toddler section. I think there's a really gentle quality to these illustrations, and that's why I put it in this category. I love this deck. I think it's extra cute. I first saw it on Julie's channel at Peekaboo Rose, and it just is like so soft and sweet for like the youngest of babies, you know? I mean, isn't catching snakes part of your day-to-day? Or mice? Like, even with all of this, even with all of this animal on animal violence, I mean, it's the circle of life. I don't know, it just feels a little softer and a little younger than the other cat deck that I chose. So that's why I put it in the toddler category. But this obviously has picture book vibes, right? I love when they do like the floral ones. That kills me. So cute. I don't see this deck very often. I think this is like my favorite. It's one of my favorite Ace of Cups. I think it's so gorgeous. The cup suit in this deck has a lot of red. And the Empress with the mama. I love it. So this is the Cat's Eye Tarot, and it's by Deborah M. Gibbon. This one's still in print. You can get it on US Games. Next is the Mermaids and Dolphins and Magical Creatures of the Seas. This is an oracle book by Jillian Kemp. And this one just looks like I stole it from a toddler. Maybe this is a little bit between toddler and child because it is getting a little bit more sophisticated. There's a little bit more going on. The art style and the lines are a little more fine and detailed. But I still think that you could teach, you know, a toddler about sea creatures and mythical creatures with this deck, and they would love it well into their childhood. Maybe it's the color scheme that compelled me to put it in this category, but either way, I would definitely own a picture book that looked like this. I am a sucker for Oceania and mermaids, so Anna has dolphins and whales and things. Sign me up. That's the Mermaids and Dolphins and Magical Creatures of the Seas. That's a long name, no? Okay, I have two more in this category, and one says it in the name. This is the Create a Story cards, Animal Village. I first saw this deck on Krista's channel, Krista Chronicles, and it is, I don't know, a picture book in cards. Perfect for toddlers, perfect for creating stories, using the cards as prompts. It's good for comprehension. It gives me serotonin. It makes me very happy. I love the gentleness of this. It reminds me a little bit of Berenstain Bears and like calico critters, things like that. So precious and sweet. So this is the Create a Story cards, Animal Village. There are different ones. I think there's like a city one. I don't know, I might need to look into it. I might need to get a couple more, but this one was my favorite, so I got this one first. This one you can get on Amazon. You can also get it on Ebu's website. And lastly, my current obsession, the Animal and Food Tarot cards. This is the Piece de Resistance. I have to keep this one in order because I will be doing a walkthrough. I did just feature this in a video, but who cares because it's amazing. Look at the foiling, look at the detail. Hold on. Focus, focus, focus. There we go. So gorgeous. And this is, I mean, self-explanatory, right? It's very storybook, picture book, but it's also kind of Sanrio-esque. It also oddly reminds me of a TV show on Netflix called Dogs in Space. Has anyone seen that show? Oh my gosh, it's so sweet. The show is about dogs exploring space, and they are, I guess, like genetically mutated. So they used to be regular dogs, but like Earth became uninhabitable. So I think humans mutated dogs to be able to talk and like walk upright and, you know, act like humans, I guess. And they sent them on a trip to find a new planet for humans to live on with their dogs. So this kind of reminds me of that, you know, like animals having people jobs. And I love that all of those jobs happen to be food. I think there's one episode where the main character worked in like a coffee shop with pastries and stuff, and I think that's exactly like what this this energy is giving. It's very cute. That's the Animal and Food Tarot. And that's it for my toddler section. So the next section is my kids section. So I'm thinking, I don't know, 7 to 12? 7 to 10? I don't know. I mean, this is for no reason at all other than our entertainment. So doesn't really matter, but let's get into it. Tarot of Pagan Cats. I told you we were gonna have another cat deck. This one feels a little bit older. This one feels a little bit more in depth, I guess, in the artwork. Hold on. There we go. Yeah, there's more going on in these scenes. They're more varied. There's more detail even in like the cats themselves. I think these are perfect images for a picture book. I would buy this in an instant, but maybe I'm just biased because cat picture books would probably be my thing. This is so good. I've featured this deck a lot on my channel, but it's just, I don't know. It has this classic feeling to it, and I think that's what sets it apart. And who knows if it's actually classic or if it's just of a certain time that feels classic to me. But it doesn't, I don't think of any particular time. I think that these illustrations could have been done in any decade, and I would think they were majestic and amazing and beautiful. So this is the Tarot of Pagan Cats. This is a low Scarabeo deck. The Heartscape Tarot is really emotional, really gentle, soft, and reminds me of a children's book, maybe a fantasy. I'm trying to think if there are any like adult themes in here, and I honestly can't remember. I think the whole theme of this deck was that it's very gentle. It's a very, you know, vivid, dreamy world. Very emotional, very cerebral, right? Because we dream in our heads, obviously. Some of these look like they were taken from picture books, you know, and used to be in a tarot deck. Very fantasy, and then we have like very mundane. I love this one. It's really magical. And this is one of those that's really focused on the art itself. Very picture book, very childhood. One of the best cards too. Okay, so this is the Heartscape Tarot. This was an indie deck. I believe it's out of print now. You might be able to find it secondhand. And you can tell from these images too, I hope, the differentiation between a toddler image and an image that a child, and a little bit older child, might be able to, I don't know, understand a little bit better, you know? Need a little bit more comprehension. Like a toddler might not be able to read much of what's happening. Maybe because everything's so small. It's maybe not the context, but the art style. Like if this scene was done in this style, it would be probably easier to digest for some reason, because what do they say? Babies love color and like bright, bold pattern and images. I think it's just like their little brains, not that toddlers are babies, but you get it. Their little brains can handle and process and comprehend a little bit better, and less so these more subtle images. I think it would kind of bore them, you know? The Tarot of Witches. This is just such a whimsical, eccentric deck, and I've also shown this a few times recently, but I guess it's just in the forefront of my mind. I am going to do a walkthrough of this one too, so let's keep this one in order. It's just so silly and wonderful, and I love it. The art style very much reminds me of children's books. The proportions of everyone's bodies, the paint on their faces, their hairstyles, their clothing, faces on inanimate objects. It's funny because there's like an element of surrealism in here, which can be really sophisticated. I think that's my word of the day, sophisticated. But, you know, I was saying before, like things being digestible. I feel like this is very digestible, and it reminds me of a little bit of Tommy DePaulo. I have another deck that reminds me of Tommy DePaulo too. And it's like Tommy DePaulo is probably in the middle, and then this is on one end, and then the other deck I'm going to mention is on the other end. But I really do love this art style. I think it's really cool. Even just the way things are painted. I don't know what the medium is for this deck. Sometimes it looks like the details are more colored pencil, but I don't know. Still so cool though. So cool. That is the Tarot of the Witches by Fergus Hall, and it is a US Games deck. I've noticed that I have a lot of US Games deck, and I have a lot of US Games decks on my wish list too. It's interesting. I'm a fan, apparently. Okay, so the next one is the Ethereal Visions Luna Edition. I have another category that this would fit into, but I'll tell you about that later. But I felt like for this one, the way that these are drawn feels like it fits more in, I don't know, in this category. Like it's the softness, I think. And there's like some modern elements, right? So like these have like less detail, and then these figures have more detail, and they're more modern looking. I don't know why it didn't ring true for me to put it in the other category. And that would be due to the art style and time frame, like being Art Nouveau and things like that. But I mean, apart from the styling being Art Nouveau, it doesn't feel overly Art Nouveau, you know? Like these two don't feel very Art Nouveau. This one does, this doesn't. So it really just feels like a classic children's picture book about maybe the Knights of the Round Table or something, you know? Like this one, I'm getting children's book. Are you not? Are you not getting children's books? Okay, this is the Ethereal Visions Luna edition. And this was indie. I don't know if this edition was ever indie, but the original edition was. Oh yeah, maybe this is. I think I still have the indie version. This is mass market now, and I think you can get it on Amazon, but I don't remember who the publisher is because this is the indie version. This might be the Kickstarter version. Who cares? Okay, here's the one that reminded me of Tommy DePaolo. This is the Dreaming Way Tarot by Rome Choi. This is another US Games deck. I always say it, it always also reminds me of like Old King Cole and the We Sing videos. It also has like Korean fashion in it, so it's an amalgamation, but it's definitely perfect for a children's picture book. It's very beautiful. It's very good at world building, and it's really refreshing as far as being close to an RWS. I love this illustration style. I think it reminds me of books from when I was a kid. And I think that everyone talks about that when they, or maybe everyone my age talks about it when they talk about this deck. But there's something about it too that doesn't make it feel outdated. I don't know, maybe that's just me. I think it's very sweet. And it feels like a story time, you know. That's the Dreaming Way Tarot. I think that watercolor books were really popular when I was a kid, and I think that adds an element of nostalgia to this deck as well. I know that I'm overlapping with other people who have done this tag, but I can't help but talk about some of these, including the Tarot of the Divine. This one is obviously inspired by deities, folklore, and fairy tales from around the world. And those stories have a little bit more adult themes than maybe something that you would want to read to a 4-year-old. So that's why this is in the kid category. I think that just because of the context of these tales, they have a little bit more adventure and thrill. They have some violence and death in there, you know. They have kind of some spoopy elements because a lot of fairy tales are cautionary tales, so they don't shy away from kind of the dark and scary sides of the world or the supernatural, things like that. But this is a classic picture book deck. I love Yoshi Yoshitani's illustrations. Oh, that's who created this deck, by the way. It is mass market, and oh, I still see, I haven't used it since I did my Mermaids video a million years ago. This isn't one of those decks that I use a lot, but it's one of those decks that I will always keep, and I do have the book that goes with it, with all of the stories. It literally is a picture book. But I would probably use this for like a daily practice or a weekly practice to brush up on folklore and fairy tales and even, you know, different deities of different cultures. But I just love looking at these images, and I think that's the biggest reason I keep this deck. So that is the Tarot of the Divine. Next is the Key to the Kingdom by Tony Mewison. This is a playing card deck. And I put it in the kid category because it really reminds me of almost like cartoons that I used to watch when I was a kid. There are certain cards that remind me of picture books that I had seen. or I don't know, advertisements I had seen when I was a kid. But also, yeah, like this, I don't know, this reminds me of like Hansel and Gretel or something. This reminds me of like science books that I had. This art style is similar to art that was kind of in homes when I was a child too. I mean, not necessarily the subject matter, but the art style reminds me of things that I saw. I don't know. I think I could definitely see books on shelves that had this illustration style. I mean, there's a little bit of variance in here, but this kind of reminds me of Lady and the Tramp, you know? Like, I know this isn't a Siamese cat, but it reminds me of the Siamese cat song. So maybe it's like a Disney element. I don't know. That really like clean, crisp, stylized type of imagery. But I think it's the playfulness that makes it feel childlike more than it being appropriate for, you know, like teens or adults. Not that it's not, but like there's still a childlike like imagination and play to them. I cannot get this to go in correctly. Are we okay? Okay, last one for my kids section is the Tarot Les Voyages de l'âme. I don't know. L'âme de l'âme et l'esprit japonais. We can just call it the Tarot Yokai. It's by Mariana Zanetta and Matthew Meyer. This is a French deck, and it is about Japanese spirits. I saw this deck originally on In 80s Blues Instagram, and I knew I had to have it immediately. And the reason I chose to put it in the kids section is that it was a little too advanced for toddlers, right? A little too spoopy, a little too much going on, maybe a little scary. But again, it had this like whimsical, silly, youthful, playful vibe that I think when you become a teenager, you kind of want to deny yourself of, you know, you kind of want to stay away from. So it's like when you're still at the age where you're buying into the fantasy of things, you know, without it having to be realistic or about the struggles of adolescence. It's more about the story and the fantasy and the escapism. This deck is wild and I love it. It's so funny and weird, and I think that's why, I don't know, I see kids liking this too. Am I twisted? I don't know. It's really cool though. This is such a cool deck. This was not hard to find, but like not super easy to get, if you know what I mean. Like I got this secondhand. It shipped from, I think, Germany. So, I mean, I'm glad that it made it, but it's not like readily available if you're in the US. That is the Tarot Yokai. Okay, and that wraps up my, oops, sorry, I hit my camera. That wraps up my children's section. So we have two more sections. We have the young adult, what I'm calling young adult section, and then what I'm calling Days of Yore, which is just of another time, very beautiful, classic picture book. All ages. Okay, let's get into it. So the first one I have for the young adult is the Heroin Tarot. I think that this is, I've said this before, actually. I think that this is very cute and aspirational. It's kind of a breath of fresh air. It's very different from a lot of other decks. And I definitely see a young adult wanting to look at these images all the time, you know? And kind of imagine themselves embodying these characters. I think for a kid, seeing, I don't know, a person in their power and like looking fabulous isn't enough, you know? Like there's not a lot of actions happening here. It's more about the energy that the figure is giving off. And I think that a young adult or a teen can get that, you know, is old enough to be able to pick up on what they're supposed to be feeling or what's, you know, compelling about these images. They're so gorgeous. I love them. And I think the watercolor like adds to that like youthful teen kind of spirit, combined with these like very, you know, these are like fully grown people, like, so I think that's where the connection is made. That is the Heroin Tarot. This was the first edition. It was a Kickstarter from 2019. I think every once in a while you can find this secondhand as well. Next up is the Yonas YA Tarot. This reminds me of like a YA novel. Like if you were gonna get an illustrated edition of a YA novel, this would be it. It's got tragedy and romance and adventure, and all of these images feel very emotional to me, you know? You've got like your strong lead. It also is very stylized. It's a vibe. It's not your parents' tarot. And yeah, I think they're really evocative and beautiful. So quick and sweet, that was the Yonas YA Tarot. I think this is the, I don't know, the 3rd edition or the 4th edition. I really can't remember. It's the one with the greenbacks. Yonas YA reissues and changes up her decks all the time. She also makes the Stunning Tarot. Her last drop was the Yonas YA Edition 7 and the Stunning Tarot Edition 4. They are sold out now, but she's always working on new stuff. I think she's actually working on a new tarot right now. You know I had to do the Children of Litha. It's too good. And I think it has like YA high fantasy adventure like written all over it, but also with a side of like a lot of animals. Are we focused? Yeah. This artwork is stunning. I'm such a fan of Zia Hunt, who is the creator of this deck. This is an indie deck. She's working on, I think, the Children of Ostara right now. And I also backed a playing card deck that she illustrated called the Corrupted Cards. Really excited to receive those this year. I mean, this has it all. It even has like the matte black backgrounds, which really just amps up like the angsty teen vibe, you know? A gorgeous deck. I always get great readings from it. It always feels like a real pleasure to use. And this is one of those that feels like a world that already exists and we're just kind of learning about it. It's almost like a graphic novel, you know? Really gorgeous. The Children of Litha Tarot. I think that this is still in stock on her website too. Anais would like to stay. You cannot stay. Thank you. Okay, next in my YA section is the Bad Girls Oracle. Oh no, there's a bend. I hope it's not a bend in one of the cards. Oh no, it's in the book. Thank God. Okay, so I don't know. I think that this type of illustration could definitely be in a children's book, but I think I did for this one consider the content of the deck and just really felt like it's such a time when we're really insecure as teenagers and we put ourselves into boxes, people put us into boxes, and this kind of turns that on its head and makes these classic archetypes work for you, you know? Like own it, work it, be empowered by it. Anais, I know you really like my new cloth, but you can't sit here because I'm doing a video. Anyway, yeah, so this is like the teen experience to me. I think this is great. This is the Bad Girl Oracle. I believe that this is still available if you look up the Bad Girl Tarot. I don't remember what the website is. Okay, 2 more for our young adult section of Vivi's library. I couldn't do this video without doing the Literary Tarot. It's literally making picture books out of novels and stories. And I feel like it has that kind of teen YA vibe to it as well. This is a deck that has, I think, 4 different artists, but it's almost seamless. It's really, really fun. I don't get this like disconnect like I do with some other collaborative decks. If you're looking closely, you can find, you know, the differences, but I think what matters here is just there's this like intelligent, curious student type of energy to this, and I think, yeah, I feel like it's very like Page of Wands, this deck, and I think that that's why I specifically put it into our teen section. And it also reminds me of like shows, like cartoon or animated shows that are targeted to teens on TV, or maybe they used to be like shows that used to exist. But I feel like that overlap between like the older kid and the young teen, this is kind of the animation style of TV shows that you would see. And no, this hashtag is not about that. It's not about TV. It's about picture books. And I can definitely see this as a picture book. That's why it's here. But I'm just, you know, elaborating on what it reminds me of. So this is the Literary Tarot. I didn't mention, this was a Kickstarter. I don't know if it's still available. It may be. It is by the Brink Literacy Project. So I would Google the Literary Tarot. Ooh, and it also says it's the Classics edition. I wonder if they would do another one. Okay, last one, rounding out our YA section, is the Love and Mystery Tarot. This is a Japanese deck, and obviously it reminds me of manga. This one also reminds me of like anime, TV shows, and movies. I don't think I can, you know, get around that reference and similarity. It's a pip deck. I'm gonna try to keep those out, but the illustrated cards are really gorgeous and definitely look like the quality of something that would be in a book, in an illustrated version of a novel, or this one upside down, yes. Or definitely the style feels very graphic novel as well. It's really beautiful. It's really saturated. It's much more adult in theme than things that I had been showing before. So I think it fits in this section. I feel like there is a bit of raciness to YA novels. And I know we're not talking novels, but I think that like what in my head, it's like if there were going to be YA picture books, like that's what I would be thinking of. And there are. I mean, they're not called YA picture books, but, you know, graphic novels, things like that. Maybe I'm expanding the tag. That's the Love and Mystery Tarot. This you can find, you just have to look for it. I don't know if it's just kind of on any big publishers' websites, in like US publishers at least. Anais is just like sitting on the corner of the cloth. It's really cute. Okay, I know this is a long one, but I only have one section left, and that is what I call Days of Yore. So we're doing picture books that are classic, vintage, incredibly beautiful. So here we go. This is the Vintage Christmas Tarot. Hello, Anais. No. I got this one on Etsy by Hattie Thorne Tarot. I don't know if it's still in stock, but I think she restocks every so often. And I love a Victorian vibe, I have to say. I just really do. This is everything. I have a walkthrough of this deck. This is, I've said it before, I'm gonna say it again. This is the Christmas deck I always wanted. It's not like perfect, but it's dang close for what it is, you know? But it is objectively gorgeous. So that is the Vintage Christmas Tarot by Hattie Thorne. Next is the Fyodor Pavlov Tarot. Again, classic illustration, so gorgeous. Maybe a little bit more adult, right? But just transcends. It's just so gorgeous. I mean, all of these are, because I don't want to look at picture books that aren't. But this is definitely, this feels very fairy tale to me, which I love. But it's also kind of rooted in, I don't know, like the mundane day-to-day lives of maybe times past, even though there's kind of that fantasy element to it as well. It's highly romantic. My favorite picture books are, even if it's about cats, like the way that they draw. I don't know how to explain the fact that like you can draw something in a romantic way, but you know what I mean. If I maybe were more educated or had a better vocabulary, I would be able to tell you. But you're just gonna have to take my word for it. This is the Fyodor Pavlov Tarot. This is the Kickstarter edition. And you can get the mass market edition, which is practically identical at all major retailers. Look at me selling. The Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg. Now, this might have been like illustrations for children in Russia, but to me, it's just like gorgeous folklore. Maybe it's not children's illustrations. Maybe it's, I don't know. Like it would have to be, right? Who knows? All I know is that I really appreciate it, and it goes in this category for being timeless and classic, even though it's of a very specific time, and that's kind of obvious. The vintage quality to this, the romantic quality, the folklore aspect makes me very, very happy. This is a really cool example of the way that like picture books look in different cultures and different parts of the world than my own, you know? And I love it. I love it. I want to read this fairy tale. I want to know this fairy tale. I want more decks from this era and from this place in the world, from Russia, because I think like Russian folklore has like some of the best aesthetics that exist. That and like Eastern Asia, you know? So this is the Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg by Yuri Shakov, and it is also US Games because I'm having a love affair with US Games. We've got 3 left. I'll try to be quick. Tarot of the 1001 Nights, artwork by Leon Carré. Stunning, epic, Unmatched, romantic, incredible. What's that Lady Gaga meme where she like lists off all these like astounding, amazing, impressive adjectives? I feel like the 1001 Nights are like stories that are really epic and grand and romantic and incredible, and that's really encompassed here. I would love to have like a bound version of Arabian folk tales and have it be illustrated with these and just see them on like big, like glossy pages. It would be gorgeous. So captivating. It just takes you away, sweeps you off your feet, you know? That's the Tarot of the 1001 Nights. And this is a low Scarabeo deck. You can get it on the Llewellyn website. If you are still here, I love you so much. Comment the word tulip and let me know. Let me know you made it and that you're a trooper. Okay, second to last deck is the Oracle of the Radiant Sun. And maybe this is more like the kind of illustration that would be in like an alchemy deck, an alchemy book, or a book about astrology when this is heavily astrologically influenced deck. But I feel like those are the kind of books that I would look through as a kid as well. I loved like Honey Lou's examples of books that she really loved as a child. And there were some, you know, unconventional picture books in there. And I think we all kind of had those, you know, the ones that we thought were really interesting, but they weren't really meant to be picture books for children, that the images really captivated us. And I think that this is one of those decks where I don't see really a children's book when I look at this, but I do see something that I would have pored over as a kid. So this is the Oracle of the Radiant Sun. And this is mass market. I don't know who published it because I don't have it in the box right now. Last one, of course I had to include the fantastic Menagerie Tarot. This is one of my favorite decks of all time. I don't know why. I mean, apart from the art being incredible, amazing, lovely, and the English country, I don't know, small town cottage vibe being a thing. And why is that something I love? I don't know. I can't tell you. Do I read Jane Austen? No. Have I seen some of the movies? Yes. Do I love some of them? Yes, but I wouldn't call myself like a super fan or anything. You know, like super fan in the sense that I know everything about them. I just appreciate it, you know, and there's just something so romantic about this deck. I talked about it last year for my romantic decks video. I will be doing a new one this year. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen. Anise. But I do know that this deck is, I don't know, I do know that I don't know. I'm sorry. I do know that this deck is the pinnacle of storybook, picture book vibes. This is it, folks. This is what I'm wanting and asking for, you know, and if there were some decks that existed that were more like, oh, there's a cat series. It's like Charlotte and Her Friends or something. I'll try to put a picture if I can. If there were decks like that, then maybe that would be the pinnacle, or maybe there'd be more than one pinnacle. Maybe this would be the Alps, okay? But this does it for me. This is so, so good. You can't really see the cold foiling. Not that like it's needed because they're just so pretty. I mentioned this before, but this deck reminds me of the book Fables, which was Aesop's Fables, and it was a book that I had when I was a kid, and the animals were anthropomorphic. It reminds me of Frog and Toad Is that what it was called? It reminds me of Mr. Toad. It's just like lots of feels happening here. I would love to, this is JJ Granville's art, by the way, if you don't know. This has been heavily featured, and so has JJ Granville's art, because there are multiple decks that feature his art. This is an independent deck. It's by Baba Studios, and I'm trying to think. I don't know if they're going to be printing this again, but it does come up for sale every now and then on social media and other sites. Frog and Toad, right? That's what the name was. I'll find it. So good. Anyway, that was a lot, and thank you for your patience. And I'm sorry if I didn't make any sense. We're just going stream of consciousness here. But I want to thank you for being here. Thanks for being curious. Thanks for being my friend. And my mom's coming. I gotta go.